My wife left me during the most difficult period of my life, but later she regretted it. I still remember the sound of her heels. 3 slow, deliberate taps on the hardwood floor. Then silence. She always paused like that before saying something she knew would rip the floor out from under me. I used to love that sound, back when it meant she was home, safe and mine. But that night, the pause was a verdict. "David, we need to talk." I knew what was coming. I had known for weeks. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she suddenly worked late on Fridays, the perfume that lingered in the car that wasn't hers, the unread messages she didn't know I'd seen. Still, nothing prepared me for the coldness in her eyes when she said it. "You're a good man, but I'm tired of waiting for someday. I need more than just promises. I need a future. He can give me that." Even now, I refused to speak his name. She packed in silence while I sat there like an idiot, my fingers white-knuckled around a coffee mug I hadn't even sipped from. I didn't try to stop her. I didn't scream or beg. I didn't have the strength. All I could do was watch my world shrink down to the sound of that damn door clicking shut. I thought that was the end of my story. I didn't know it was just the beginning. After she left, everything slowed down. I didn't eat for 2 days. Not because I was punishing myself, but because I just forgot. Time blurred. The walls of our small apartment, once a dream painted in secondhand furniture and late-night laughter, now stood hollow, echoing with her absence. Her toothbrush was gone. Her perfume no longer lingered in the hallway. Her laughter, once filling every space, was now an ache in the silence. I went to work the next Monday, like a ghost. I sat behind the counter at the mechanic shop, fixing cars with numb hands, pretending like every bolt I twisted wasn't unraveling something inside me. My boss, Jerry, a good man with grease under his nails and pain behind his eyes, didn't say a word about it. Just handed me more work. That was how men like us survived, in silence, with our hands busy. Nights were the worst. I would sit on the edge of the bed and scroll through old photos of us. She used to wrinkle her nose when she laughed. I had forgotten that. Or maybe I hadn't. Maybe I just missed it so much, it felt like remembering something sacred. I watched her new life unfold on social media, like a movie I wasn't cast in. Photos of her in silk dresses, clinking champagne glasses, ski trips, yachts. Him, always in the background, wearing smugness like a second skin. He was everything I wasn't. Young, rich, connected. And worst of all, she looked happy. I told myself I'd get over it. That time heals. But that's a lie people say to survive. Truth is, some wounds don't heal. They harden. They become the bones you rebuild yourself around. And I rebuilt myself from dust. Every cent I had left, I poured into night classes in business and computer programming. I barely understood half of what I was reading, but I refused to quit. I slept in my car some nights when rent ran short. I lost 20 pounds. My knuckles were cracked and bleeding half the time from fixing cars during the day and typing code at night. People stopped inviting me out. I didn't blame them. I was always tired, always distracted, always reaching for something they couldn't see. But I saw it. Not clearly. Not yet. But I felt the ember of it. Somewhere deep under the ashes of everything she burned down, there was a fire trying to be born. I remember one night in particular. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, now nearly empty because I'd sold most of my furniture, eating instant noodles, surrounded by books and half-working monitors. My back hurt. My eyes were blurry, and I said out loud to no one, "I'm going to make it, no matter what it costs." That night, something changed. It wasn't hope, It was hunger. And hunger can build empires. There's a kind of madness that comes from being left behind. It doesn't announce itself with wild screaming or broken glass. Number, it's quieter than that. It's the way you start skipping meals without noticing. The way you mutter code logic under your breath in the shower. The way you see every smiling couple on the street and want to tear a hole in the sky just to make the world feel what you feel. I was no longer just trying to move on. I was consumed. Every spare second outside of the shop, I buried myself in the world of algorithms, APIs, and market research. I watched startup pitch videos at 3 a.m., read case studies until my eyes watered, and filled notebooks with failed business ideas. I wasn't just learning, I was becoming something else, someone else. I don't remember the moment it all clicked, the moment my obsession took on shape. But I do remember the name, Virion. It started as a simple idea, a mobile platform to connect freelance automotive mechanics to clients in real time, cutting out the middleman garages that took most of the cut. No one thought it would work. The gig economy was overcrowded, the tech was complex, the margins too slim, but they didn't understand what was fueling me. This wasn't just business. This was revenge. Not the childish movie-style kind where I show up in a limousine and laugh in her face. Number. This was deeper. I wanted to become undeniable. To matter so much that the universe would have no choice but to take me seriously. To make sure the next time she looked my way, she'd realize what she threw away. I built the prototype with a borrowed laptop, coding on borrowed Wi-Fi in a public library. I pitched it to investors in wrinkled shirts and scuffed shoes, praying they wouldn't notice my bitten fingernails or the desperation behind my smile. Most said no. Some said maybe. One, a tired old man in a cramped office in New Jersey, said yes. He wrote me a check for $50,000. It might as well have been $1 million. I cried in my car for half an hour after I left his office. I don't remember the drive home. All I remember is looking at myself in the rearview mirror and whispering, "This is it. Don't fuck it up." That money went fast. Servers, contracts, legal fees, licenses, developers. I slept less, ate worse, lost what little friends I had left. But I didn't care. I was in the fire, and I was forging myself into something no one could ignore. Virion launched 9 months later, and in the first month, we had 1,200 downloads. Not much, but it was real. People were using it. Mechanics were messaging me, saying they were finally getting work without being ripped off. Clients loved the convenience. Reviews came in, most of them 5 stars. Then one day, out of nowhere, a journalist wrote a piece on us titled, "The Uber of Auto Repair?" That was the spark. Investors called. Downloads skyrocketed. I hired 2 full-time developers, then 5, then a marketing lead. My name started appearing in business blogs. Podcasts wanted to interview me. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me saying how proud they were. But not her. Not yet. And I didn't want her to. Not until I stood so far above the man she left me for. The comparison would be insulting. That was the sickness of it. I didn't want success for joy. I wanted it for the pain it could deliver. And that obsession, that fuel, pushed me harder than anything love ever did. Success doesn't arrive with fireworks. It creeps in unnoticed. One morning, you wake up and realize your mattress isn't on the floor anymore. The coffee you drink isn't instant. Your emails are about partnerships, not overdue bills. Your name shows up on Google next to numbers with too many zeros to feel real. And yet, inside, you still feel like that guy eating noodles on the carpet. I had just signed a deal with a national auto parts distributor, the kind of partnership that puts your logo in Super Bowl commercials. We moved into a high-rise office downtown. Sleek glass, marble floors, fake plants in clean white pots, my name on the door. And one morning, while I was riding the elevator up to the 42nd floor, I saw her. Not in person, on a screen. There, on my phone, in a news article forwarded by one of my investors. Liam Corwin declares bankruptcy amid mounting legal troubles. Former hedge fund prodigy blames shifting markets and internal mismanagement. I didn't even have to read the whole piece. I just stared at his photo. He looked different. Not old, but tired. Like money had dried up and taken his soul with it. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just this cold, empty space where the fire had once burned, like a storm had finally passed, and left behind only wreckage. My assistant stepped into the elevator as I stared at the screen. "Morning, Mr. Lane," she said with a smile. I looked up, forced a nod. The doors slid shut. In the mirrored wall, I didn't recognize the man looking back at me. Tailored suit, polished shoes, jawline I'd forgotten I even had. I had changed, outside at least, but inside, there were still ghosts, and one of them wore a wedding ring she took off too easily. That week it happened. The message. A simple DM on Instagram. Just one line. "Hey, stranger, I saw the Forbes article. Proud of you." My hands went cold. My stomach turned. I stared at her profile. She still looked beautiful, still knew how to pose like life was perfect. But the sparkle in her eyes, gone, replaced by something I knew too well, regret. I didn't answer. Not then. I couldn't. My chest was full of bricks, and every memory came flooding back. The nights I screamed into my pillow, the ramen dinners, the nights I coded until my fingers cramped. And now she wanted to reappear? Number not yet. Instead, I closed the app and walked into my office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, city below me like a conquered empire. But I felt no victory, because success doesn't undo betrayal. It only shows you how deep the scars go. It was a rainy Thursday when it happened. I was sitting at my desk, staring at the contracts for a new international expansion deal, ink still wet from negotiations. My assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Lane, there's a woman here. Says she doesn't have an appointment, but she insists she knows you." I didn't ask who. I already knew. My throat tightened. A strange mix of adrenaline, nausea, and something darker. I took a breath and said quietly, "Send her in." The door opened, slowly, like she was afraid of what waited on the other side. And there she was, Emily. She looked different, not worse. Just human, real. The glamour was gone. Her makeup was minimal. Her coat clung to her shoulders like armor. She smiled, faintly, nervously. "Hey, David," she said, almost like we were bumping into each other in a coffee shop. I didn't smile back. I didn't speak. I just watched her. She stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. She looked around at the office, at the skyline behind me, at the plaque on the wall with my name. Her eyes shone, not with pride, but with something else. "I saw your name in an article last week," she began, "and I've been meaning to reach out for a while, but I didn't know if you'd want to hear from me." I leaned back in my chair, hands folded. "What do you want, Emily?" That made her blink. The coldness in my voice, it hit her like wind chill. She hesitated. "I wanted to see you, just to talk, to see how you're doing." "How I'm doing?" I repeated flatly. "You want a progress report?" She flinched. "That's not fair." I laughed, low, bitter. "Number What wasn't fair was you tearing my life in half because I couldn't give you yachts and penthouses, and now that he's broke, suddenly you miss the man you threw away? Tears welled in her eyes. That's not why I'm here. I made a mistake, David. I see that now. He wasn't who I thought he was. And you built something incredible. I never should have left. I stood, not in anger, just to rise above it. I walked to the window and stared out at the rain slicing across the glass. My voice was calm when I spoke. I spent years trying to become someone who deserved love. I bled for it, starved for it, burned everything to reach this. And now you come back. Not for who I am, but for what I have. She took a step closer. I'm not here for your money. I'm here because I finally understand. I didn't appreciate what I had. But you were always real. And I turned around. Her words froze on her lips. No, I said. You loved the idea of a perfect life. I was a placeholder until something shinier came along. And now that it's tarnished, you want to come back. But the man you left behind, he doesn't exist anymore. Her lips trembled. You're saying you won't even try? I did try, I whispered. I tried for years to forget you, to forgive you. And now that I have, you don't get to reopen the wound just because you're bleeding. She looked like she might collapse. I watched her crumble. The guilt, the shame, the realization that she wasn't stepping back into something familiar. She was a stranger now, and so was I. I'm sorry, she whispered. So am I said, but not for saying no. She left without another word, and when the door clicked shut behind her, it sounded eerily familiar, like the last door of the past closing forever. They don't tell you what happens after the confrontation. Movies end when the ex walks away. The audience claps, roll credits, justice served. But life lingers. After Emily left my office, I didn't celebrate. I didn't pour a drink or call a friend. I just stood there, motionless, staring at the door she had walked through. Again. And then came the silence. That heavy, all-consuming quiet that wraps around your rib cage like chains. The silence you hear in hotel rooms when you travel alone. The silence that lives in high-rise apartments with polished floors and no footprints. For the first time in years, I didn't know what to chase. The vengeance was complete. The score had been settled. But there was no peace, no joy, just space, empty space. I walked home that night instead of taking a car. The rain had stopped, but the pavement still glistened. I passed the park where she once kissed me under the yellow glow of a broken street lamp. I passed the diner where we used to order pancakes at 2 a.m. because we couldn't sleep. All of it still existed, but the life we lived in, it was gone. And in its place, money, power, applause, strangers shaking my hand, saying, I admire what you've built. But none of them knew the price. No one claps for the nights you cried alone. No one sees the bruises on your soul. I got home, penthouse, smart lighting, glass walls, and sat on the edge of the bed in a room bigger than my entire old apartment. And I realized I was lonelier now than I'd ever been when I was poor. Back then, at least I had a purpose. To survive, to prove her wrong, to win. Now, I had nothing left to fight. I opened my fridge. Organic food, bottled water that cost more than I used to spend in a week. But none of it tasted like victory. I microwaved leftovers I didn't remember ordering and sat at a marble kitchen island that felt like a stranger's home. I stared at the wall for nearly an hour, and then I opened my laptop. Not to check numbers, not to monitor downloads or investor emails, but to start writing something. Not code, not strategy, A letter. To myself. It began with 3 words I hadn't allowed myself to say since the night she left. I'm still hurting. Not because I missed her, but because I had built an empire from pain, and now I didn't know who I was without it. I wrote for hours, not for anyone else, just for me. And by the time I finished, the sun was rising, warm and silent behind the skyscrapers. It didn't feel like a new beginning, but it did feel like an ending. And that was enough. Parties, interviews, emails with subject lines like exciting opportunity. Everyone wants a piece of you. Everyone wants to be you. But once the headlines cycle past and the applause fades, you start hearing the whispers, not from others, but from yourself. I sat on a panel once, next to men with shinier watches and whiter teeth. And while they spoke of exponential growth and crypto mergers, I stared out into the crowd and wondered, who am I when no one's watching? I had built something the world admired, but I had no one to come home to, no one to share it with. My success lived in servers and spreadsheets, not in memories. One night, I visited the old neighborhood. The mechanic shop was still there. Smaller now, paint peeling. Jerry had retired. A kid with earbuds and a vape ran the counter. He didn't know who I was. I just stood there, breathing in motor oil and time. And for the first time in years, I missed it. The honesty of it. The grease under your nails. The curse when a wrench slipped. The quiet pride of fixing something broken. I left without saying a word. Not because I didn't belong, but because I finally understood I'd spent years escaping that life instead of healing from it. I found the journal weeks later, tucked in a drawer under layers of tax returns and branding mock-ups. The one I had written that night after Emily showed up. Dozens of pages, rage, grief, questions, and one unsent letter. The one I had written to her in my mind 100 times. I read it again. You hurt me in a way I didn't know was possible. Not because you left, but because you left without looking back. I gave you everything I had, not in money, but in belief. I believed we were building something real. You believed in shortcuts. But here's the truth. I don't hate you. Not anymore. I pity you. Because I built something from ashes. You ran from the fire. And now I finally understand. You weren't my end. You were my beginning. I closed the journal and exhaled. I didn't need to send it. Because the healing wasn't for her. It was for me. It was a charity event I didn't want to attend. Article wine. People in overpriced suits pretending to care about things they didn't understand. I stayed near the back, sipping something I couldn't pronounce. That's when I saw her. She wasn't flashy. No designer logos, just a black dress and calm eyes. She stood in front of a painting of a fractured skyline, and I could tell she wasn't looking at the art. She was feeling it. I said something dumb, something like, "You ever stare at something beautiful and not know why it makes you ache?" She smiled. All the time. Her name was Lena, a school counselor, smart, witty, fiercely honest. She didn't care that I was David Lane, founder of Virion. She cared about who I was when the tie came off, when I stopped performing. We met for coffee, then for walks, then for weekends. She didn't try to fix me. She let me be. And that was new. Months later, I saw Emily again. Not by design. I was leaving a speaking event at a university, and she was in the audience. She approached quietly, cautiously. "You look different," she said. "I feel different." She glanced at Lena, who was waiting by the exit. "She seems kind." "She is." There was a pause. "I just wanted to say, I hope you're happy." I smiled, genuinely. I am. For the first time. Not because of what I built, but because of what I let go of. She nodded, her eyes watered, but she didn't try to argue. She just said, "Goodbye, David." And this time, when the door closed behind her, it didn't hurt. It healed. Years later, I told Lena everything. About the betrayal, the hunger, the madness that drove me from the gutter to glass towers, about how I once believed success was a weapon, and how I eventually realized it had to be a mirror instead. She listened. She held my hand. And when I asked her if she ever feared I'd fall back into that man again, the obsessed, vengeful version of me, she kissed my forehead and said, "You're not him anymore." And I wasn't. I still ran the company. I still spoke at events. I still built things. But I also took Sundays off. I learned to cook. I played chess in the park with retirees who didn't care how many millions I was worth. I lived. Not in spite of the pain, but because of it. Because some fires don't destroy you. They forge you. People still ask me about her sometimes. They ask if I ever think about what could have been, and I tell them the truth. She was a chapter. A painful, necessary one, but not the whole story. I don't hate her. I don't miss her. I thank her. Because the man I am today, he was born the day she walked away, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. Not even love. Not even gold. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss new and exciting stories.